I caught online that Syria's foreign minister Walid Muallem died, and the memories of him, um, I I shelved them, I think, and then they came back to me. I I met him. I met him several times when my family was living at the Lebanese embassy in Washington D.C. and my father was the ambassador of Lebanon to the U.S. from 1997 until 1999, sort of a little bit into 2000. But this is after living in Lebanon for several years and moving back to the U.S. at the age of 15, 16, and I had nothing to do with the embassy lifestyle, and this is me. It's really if anything, I'm the odd man out in that, the odd boy out in that situation. I had no desire to have a sort of a diplomatic lifestyle. So, no diplomatic plates. I had a standard license plate. I never had that IRS exemption, tax exemption card when I would buy things. I liked my car windows not being tinted or anything like that. And I grew up, childhood in the U.S., suburban lifestyle, public schools. For me, the elegance, if you will, about living in an embassy, it didn't matter to me. And also, I was young, and I just had no curiosity about it. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because my first memory of Walid Muallem is in that in that context. It's Lebanon's Independence Day, 1997, and there's a row of guests coming into the ambassador's residence. It's a party, and I had to be there. Sort of the family is meant to sort of introduce themselves at the entrance and shake hands with everyone coming in. I was problematic. Rather than just simply standing at the door and shaking hands, I thought I would take advantage of the situation and disguise myself as a coat check person with a little stopwatch and like a counter, and I was hanging coats from visiting dignitaries and diplomats and whoever was coming for the Independence Day. And it was fun. I was getting tipped, making money. And you'd get $5 tip, $10 tip, and I was pocketing a lot of money, and I shouldn't have been doing this. And there were people meant to do that work, and I sort of interfered and took over. And I was very good. I was very quick. And I think they were having fun too, maybe they weren't enjoying the fact that they weren't getting tipped as much as they should, but they were definitely happy that they weren't working when they should be. And it was, for me, it was just it was fun to be a bit mischievous and make some pocket money. And I remember two people. The people that stuck out, they both happened to be, I think, the largest people who were entering the embassy, the residence, physically big. The first was Ted Kennedy, and shook hands with him. He introduced me to, I believe, his son, and we spoke for a few minutes, and he must have not caught the fact that I was the coat check guy when we were talking, because he gave me a generous tip. And I mentioned to him while talking, I was like, thank you for that $20 bill. And he had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, you gave me your coat to check in. He's like, oh, yeah. What do you do? Oh, right. And he just didn't know what to make of it. And he said, well, money well earned, and sort of said goodbye. But that was Ted Kennedy, and that was sort of the interaction I expected, maybe from somebody that would think otherwise. Like, what the hell is this guy doing? Coat checking and then being an ambassador's son at the same time. The other person is Walid Muallem. I think larger than Ted Kennedy. Really, really a big guy. Very, very big, bulky guy. I was a bit spoiled with all the tips coming in. And he shows up. He walks up to the door. There's a few steps before you reach the main door. I'm there, eager to take his coat and get a tip. He, this is my recollection of it. He takes off his coat and just sort of pushes it towards me, just sort of, here, take this, and pushes his way into the door. I mean, it's funny. It's almost like this is my embassy. Get out of the way. I'm exaggerating a bit, but there was no tip, and it was very, very sort of. It was like a bullish move, just pushing his way in. I've seen images like this in Donald Trump when he wants to be at the front, or when he's sort of that kind of. There's an aggression in the sort of. I'm the star, my turn, or me, and he had that kind of thing, except, no tip. So that's what I remembered mostly, was that, this guy didn't tip. I had no idea who he was. I had no clue that this was Syria's ambassador to Washington, D.C. And the only reason I made the connection was later that evening, I'm also being introduced to Walid Muallem. And this was my father introducing me to Syria's ambassador. And I look at him and he looks at me. He clearly had no memory that, it's the same guy. So I decided to tell him. I was like, a lot of people tip for the coat check, but, you decided not to. I guess that's, that's okay though, because I'm enjoying the job. And I was stumbling. And my father looked at me. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? And then the Walid Muallem, I think he immediately realized it. And he's like, hey, مزبوط. انت ما كنت برا ما هيك? And I told him, yeah, I was outside. You didn't tip me. My father sort of like grabbed me, and I got in trouble. He's like, the hell are you doing? You don't do coat check and then, show up inside and be an ambassador's son. You have to choose. You're either the coat check guy or the ambassador's son. I told him, well, I for better or worse, I'm both tonight. And he just sort of scolded me, but he's like, don't do that. And I stopped doing the coat check. But it was fun. It was fun sort of putting him on the spot and embarrassing him a bit. But I was doing this as a 16-year-old, again, a bit of a playful mischief. But that's the first encounter with Walid Muallem. The other one, or maybe the two other times I met him, there was no banter. I walked into the residence. I was going upstairs to the bedroom, and the living room, or the main living room, is on the right, and I saw him talking to my father, the back of my father's head, and he looked extremely agitated. And this was very late at night, and it was a bit odd. I remember that. It was strange that he was there. And this is towards the end of our stay at the embassy. And my father submitted his resignation when Emil Lahoud became president. So we were out of the embassy by 2000. But this is in the months leading up to Israel's withdrawal from South Lebanon. And Ehud Barak, Prime Minister of Israel, is openly discussing Israel's departure from Lebanon, or at least the desire to leave. And Israeli battles with Hezbollah, Israeli soldiers getting killed every month. And there was domestic pressure in Israel for the Israelis to withdraw. And Walid Muallem would show up, and he would have very tense conversations late at night. And this is in the ambassador's residence, so not at the embassy, but in the residence. And I sort of was coming home late at night. I walk in, the bedrooms are upstairs, and to the right was the main living room. And I could see Walid Muallem sort of staring at my father, rather tense glare. And I saw my father's head, the backside of his head. And there was obviously there's a difficult conversation happening. And the next time I saw him was in a similar setting, except, it was maybe a slightly friendlier exchange, because Walid Muallem sort of stood up, saw me, and sort of summoned me in a way to come over, and sort of suggested that I should be friends with his son. And I think I met his son maybe at one of these functions, at the embassy functions, but I just didn't see a way to be friendly with that kind of person. Sort of, he was a teenager like me, but he had a bit of a flashy tendency, and I remember this sort of like the tinted windows, wanting to hang out in very expensive places in Georgetown, and sort of a place where if you're 16, 17, 18, it doesn't make sense to go there, but it's just money, spending a lot of money. And I think a lot of it had to do with just, the ambassadors know each other, and it's a difficult relationship between Syria and Lebanon, and the sons should sort of be friends, and it was very awkward, sort of almost like a soft pressure. It's just, you need to be friends with my son. I never had a friendship with him. May have met him once or twice, only at the residence. But that sort of very tense atmosphere, and the reason, the conversations I had with my father afterwards about those moments, it sort of put it in perspective. The Syrians were deeply frustrated that the Israelis were leaving South Lebanon, and unable to sort of justify their own presence in Lebanon, and in a way desperate to legitimize the situation, occupying Lebanon, and also legitimizing Hezbollah's story, its narrative, keeping weapons outside of the state, outside of state control. So, in other words, the fear that Israel would leave, and then suddenly there'd be pressure to have a sort of semi-normal country again, one army, one government, the like. The Syrians, and sort of back then Hezbollah was more under their thumb, sort of legitimizing the abnormal, multiple armies, multiple sub-state sort of groups, and then in particular Hezbollah would sort of become much bigger. But that kind of absurd perspective to legitimize multiple armies and militia once the Israelis go. And this is before Shaba became sort of a common lexicon, or before Ghajar became sort of a news item. This is just how do you keep control of Lebanon in a comfortable way after the Israelis leave South Lebanon. So it was very odd. The Syrians were very upset that the Israelis were leaving. Anyway, and that's the last time I saw Walid Muallem. 3 years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, it must have been either 2017 or 18. He's rushed to AUH in Beirut from Syria. He's sick, or he needs surgery or something, and he's having a operation in AUH. And I remember just walking by AUH when it was known that he was in Lebanon, in Beirut, seeking treatment. And I remember looking up at AUH and wondering, what would it be like if I sort of defied security and found my way into his room and sort of said things to him that I don't think you could easily say with the entourage next to him and all the security. I would have been dealt with. But no, I think I'm only sharing this because it shows just how much time has passed. That someone like Walid Muallem, who for many years served as the ambassador to Washington, Syrian ambassador, who then became Syria's foreign minister for some 13, 14 years, dies of natural causes. And he managed to live a full life. He managed to stay in relative power. I don't know how much actual power this man had. My guess is he didn't have much. My understanding of the Syrian regime is that he is going to be remembered as one of the least important figures in the regime's story. But he was a quote-unquote friendly face, I guess, for the regime from the majority community, and could talk to the West, whatever that means. And he dies of natural causes. But so many people along the way have been killed by the most vicious regime in our neighborhood. So that's my sort of short and very quick reflection on learning of Walid Muallem's passing. Thank you.